update, status of fiscal year 20 planned audits with Ms. Crystal Brooks, our county auditor. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Well, this evening I just wanted to go over with all of you the status of the fiscal year 20 audit plan to let you know where things stand. So I will jump right in. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the notes that I sent you. So I will just go through the things that have changed since the last time I presented. So our audit on Office on Aging revenue has continued to be in progress. We've had some delays because of the pandemic with staff not being available and folks in the various offices just being busy with additional tasks. So we pushed the reporting on that project back to July. My hope is that we'll get it done then, but we really just don't know until things settle down a little bit when they'll be able to get the information to us that we need. The financial statement audits had been completed the last time I updated you all. The only thing that changed with that project was that the audits for the affiliated agencies were completed. And I sent you all a report summarizing that there were no exceptions related to those issues. The same things that we've had in prior years where not all of the fire companies can complete their reporting on time remains a valid issue. Our audit of detention center inmate accounts was completed in December. We had one recommendation resulting from that audit. The issue was related to, there were some system changes and a couple of particular payment types weren't being posted to all the accounts correctly. The issue we found impacted 5 deposits for $191 total. Those weren't captured in any of the detention center's reconciliations because they needed to be doing a 3-way match essentially instead of a 2-way match between various data sources. And so when we pointed it out to the folks at the detention center, they went ahead and corrected the system issue that caused the problem in the first place and changed the reconciliation process. So to our knowledge, that issue has been addressed. Our audit of timekeeping and overtime is still in progress. Our hope is to report on that in July. Contract management is also in progress. We are doing that audit so that there will be several reports issued related to the contracts for different departments. So we expect to be issuing a report related to public works, one related to information communication technology, I believe we also did Parks and Recreation, and then there'll be a couple other reports that sort of lump together the different types of contracts that the county has. And so we expect to be issuing those reports throughout the summer. We completed an audit of the county's mobile home excise tax. There was just one issue related to this audit. People who own mobile home parks pay taxes to the county based on the number of units or rented units in their parks. And so when they submit their payment information, they've received a bill from the county that is based on the number of known lots in that facility. And so if there are fewer rented lots than the total capacity, the owner is required to submit to the county an affidavit saying, you know, these are the lots that are not vacant, and also send that lot list. And we found that for a few of them, some payments that were less than the full amount were either missing the lot list or that affidavit or both. In total, there were a couple that we couldn't fully sort out. The net impact of that was about $50 in underpayments, so it wasn't a huge amount. Treasury has added a step in their review process just to let the park owners know if there's some document that's missing so they can make sure that they keep that record on file. As I said, it's not a significant amount of money, but it's just a point of missing documentation. There are 2 projects in the fiscal year 20 audit plan that have been postponed because of other delays, and those are the audits related to economic development programs and inspections and permit billing. So my plan is to move those projects into the fiscal year 21 audit plan. So you all will later in the meeting have the fiscal year 21 audit plan resolution on your agenda. So I will give you a couple quick highlights for what's in that proposed audit plan, and then you all can let me know if you have any questions. So the audit plan is based on the risk assessment that we do every year and that we update throughout the year, which really considers what are the business processes that the county has, what could go wrong in those business processes. If something did go wrong, how substantial would it be in terms of, reputation, costs, lack of availability of services to citizens, things like that. We try to make sure that we've gotten the perspective of you all as council members, of the executive administration, and also all the things that we've learned as we work through our audits every year. So the things that are in the audit plan, some of these are projects that we do every year. So things like making sure we've got time to do budget analysis, making sure we have time to respond to questions from you all. We make sure we are auditing purchase card controls. We look at the status of prior audit findings. We make sure that the county's financial statement audit gets completed on time, or rather that the contractor that does it gets it done on time. So we also have planned to add a couple audits that we haven't done in the past. And so one of those will be the tuition reimbursement program that the county has. We've just never looked at it before. There's not a whole lot of money that goes through that, but we'd like to take a look and see how it works. And also the COVID-19 assistance programs that the county is putting in place right now. We want to look and see that all the money that has been spent through those programs, that the applicants met the criteria for those programs, and that the disbursements all look reasonable. So we'll get into that probably mid-year. Some of the projects that we've done before that are included in this year's audit plan, just because it's time to cycle back to them, are things like accounts payable, water and sewer billing controls. We know that the county is anticipating implementing a new water and sewer billing system at some point in the future, either next year or so or a little bit further out. But it's a big revenue source for the county, and so we always want to make sure that we've at least checked in with that process. We will take a look at property management controls, environmental services, so the landfill, making sure that the amount of money we're paying to MES for the services that they're providing, that they're collecting the right amount. We want to check out all that. We will look at procurement practices, real property tax billing and collection, and probably get into a little bit of fleet maintenance contract management. So that's at high level what we are planning to look at in fiscal year 21. Certainly, this plan is flexible. We have time built in, as I said, to respond to questions from you all. We also have time built in for training for the staff, and just to make sure that if there are unexpected projects that come up, that we have the availability to address them, because sometimes things come up. So with that, I know I threw a lot of information out here. I can certainly answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Council? Anyone? Seeing none, the one question I would have for you, Ms. Brooks, is when I look at your estimated hours in the proposed plan, is that one individual? Is that the total office?
Those are the total hours for the office. So it's how much we expect to use. The one exception to that, I would say, is the financial statement audits. There's 75 hours that I have planned budgeted for that, but that is basically just my time. It doesn't include the time that our contracted auditors spend on that project, because that is just a dollar amount that we pay them. It doesn't come out of how much time we have available to work on other things.
Thank you. And I also want to thank you again for the time and effort for our past Audit Advisory Board meeting, where we welcomed our new member, Mr. Tilley. Anyone else for comments?
Since you mentioned it, Mr. Vincenti, I'll also throw out our last Audit Advisory Board meeting was May 27th. Our next one is going to be August 25th. So if you all have people who might be interested in attending, please have them check it out on the county's webpage. The information is there. They can also email me if they would like a link to it. We probably are going to do it virtually again. or if we're available to be in the office, we'll do it that way also.
And the time again, I didn't hear you say?
It'll be at 4:30 p.m.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have an estimated 3 or 4 minutes yet before we go into our public hearings. So I would just ask you to stand by. Mr. Boniface, you got time for a quick call? I'm going to call you on your cell. I didn't miss a thing.
Wake up, Chad.
Where we at, Brian?
What time did you want to restart?
7:15.
You've got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Just a reminder to everybody, we are streaming while we're waiting.
Thank you, Council Administrator.
You're quite welcome, sir.
We're now at 7:15.
Chair calls to order public hearing for Bill 20-012, Bill 20-013, Bill 20-014. With us this evening, we have Director Boniface, Ms. Lambert, and Mr. Sandless, County Treasurer. Good evening.
Good evening, Council President. Council, thank you very much for having us this evening. Mr. Samlis is here. He's going to run through all three bills and also the accompanying amendments that we have before you this evening for introduction. So I'll turn it over to him.
So this is annual legislation that we always bring forth in front of the council, normally immediately following the budget process. And what it does is that it enables the county to issue debt, which will then be paid subsequently in years past that for various projects that are listed within the bill. Now, all those projects that are listed within these bills were part of the recently adopted budget. So there's nothing there that wouldn't be part of that budget process. So we have three parts of this. You have the taxpayer supported, the CPI bills, and those come to $55,700,000 as amended. Those run for various projects, kind of a combination of highway projects, school projects, stormwater projects, and roads and bridges and parks and rec. Some of the more notable projects in that area include the Joppatown High School renovation project of about $8 million. There's about a total of $12.5 million of various school projects, about $7 million of stormwater projects, about $13 million of various roads and bridges projects, also some parks and rec projects, $5 million for athletic fields improvements. Those would cover both fields at Cedar Lane as well as Miller High School, as well as various county facility projects. The other bill is for our water and sewer capital projects, and those total $5,850,000. Of course, our water and sewer fund is completely supported by the ratepayers and the hookup fees that people pay to get into the water and sewer system. So they are not taxpayer supported. And those projects, some of the notable projects there include the biosolids facility enhancements, some changes to sod runs, ultraviolet disinfecting project, and some various other projects related to the operation of that system. The final bill is where we take prior authorized bonds that may have been authorized in prior years, but because maybe we had project savings, the projects were completed, maybe the project changed scope, we then have to sometimes reappropriate those unsold bonds to new projects so that we can use them. And for the most part here, these are mostly just a lot of smaller projects, a lot of smaller dollar amounts related to stormwater projects, road projects, and of course the amendments here follow all of those recent cleanup efforts that the Board of Education did, trying to close out some of their older projects and put them into their new category budgets to address some of their facility needs. Again, just kind of a reminder of how the process works. The council, of course, gets the opportunity to weigh in on projects that are funded with bonds during the budget process, and then also then here during the budget authorization process. A few months from now, when we go to sell bonds again, and the plan is to sell them in January or February. Of course, this year it got delayed a little bit. Then there will also be the time for the council to weigh in on the terms of sale. That's where we'll say how long we plan to ask for the maturity of the bonds to be, some of the other terms. And then, of course, the council will have the opportunity to approve the final sale of the bonds as well. So all of those processes will go through, all of the bond process does go through the kind of the legislative process. If there are any questions about any of the process or any of the projects, we'll take those.
And as Mr. Sandless noted, Council President, all the amendments have to do with the amendments that you did to the budget during the budget process. There's no additional amendments there.
Understood. Understood. Council, at this time, questions? Any of you? Seeing none, then well, thank you for coming this evening. Ms. Dixon, is there anyone signed up?
There is no one signed up, Mr. President.
All right, very well then. I want to thank you again for coming, and we'll address this at our next meeting. Public hearing is now closed. We're waiting for 7:30 now, Brian. Yeah, it's long practice. Okay. I actually wrote that. Okay. Dr. Moy, can you hear me, sir?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Back to you in a bit. Checking on time, Brian.
Got 1 minute. It is now 7:30.
Good evening. Chair calls to order Legislative Session Day 20-020. At this time, I'd like to ask you all to please join us in standing for the pledge, followed by opening prayer with Councilmember Wagner. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening seeking direction and guidance, not just for our county, but for our nation. We need a healing spirit and a clear-minded thinking to get us through the difficult times we are experiencing. We ask that you watch over law enforcement, first responders, caregivers, leaders, and those who are attempting to effect change. We ask that you keep them all safe in the days ahead. Grant us the understanding, the compassion, and the knowledge to seek your will and to heal that which divides us. Father, we ask a special blessing for our good friend, Dr. Russell Moy, and his family as he opens a new chapter in his life. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Councilman Wagner, thank you for those words. Agenda item number 4, special presentations. We are pleased to have Dr. Moy with us this evening to give his COVID-19 update. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, Council President Vincenti and Councilman Wagner and all the members of the Board of Health and County Council. I'm here to give this week's COVID health update. I'll begin with the COVID-19 numbers as of today, June 9th. Worldwide, over 7 million cases, over 400,000 deaths. In the United States, nearly 2 million cases and 111,000 deaths. In Maryland, 58,904 cases and 2,686 confirmed deaths. Also 9,676 people ever hospitalized. Taking a closer look at the state age data, those under age 60 make up 81% of the COVID cases, but only 12% of the COVID deaths, while those 60 and over make up 19% of the COVID cases, but 88% of the COVID deaths. Looking at state race data, African Americans, who make up 30% of Maryland's population, account for 42% of the COVID deaths, while white Americans make up nearly 60% of the population and 42% of the COVID deaths. Now taking a look at some other state metrics being closely followed. The number of new COVID cases over the last 14 days, the number of daily cases has come down from 736 cases on May 27th to 500 cases today. And that's a 32% decrease in the state. The number of new COVID deaths over the last 14 days, the number of new deaths have gone from 53 deaths on May 27th to 33 deaths today. That's a 38% decrease. The number of hospitalizations have also been on a steady downward trend, with 1,338 hospitalizations on May 27th, and now it's under 1,000. It's 970 hospitalizations reported today. That's a 28% decrease. The intensive care unit ICU bed usage numbers have also been on a steady downward trend, with 520 ICU beds used on May 27th, down to 386 ICU beds today. That's a 26% decrease. And then finally, the state's positivity rate, which again reflects the number of positive COVID tests compared with the number of negative COVID tests done in the state. That's another metric being carefully followed. And the lower the positivity rate, the better, preferably below 12% is best. Maryland's positivity rate today is 7.1%. That's down from 10.5% last week, and that's a 32% decrease. So all those numbers are trending in the right direction. For Harford County, we today have 969 cases. That's compared with 891 cases this time last week. Today, 52 confirmed deaths reported, and that's compared with 48 confirmed deaths last week. Harford County's positivity rate today is 2.8%, and that's compared with 6.6% last week. And that gives us the fifth best positivity rate of all the Maryland jurisdictions and the best positivity rate of the 11 largest Maryland jurisdictions that have at least 900 cases. So as a reminder, the reasons a low positivity rate in testing is a good sign. First, it suggests that the spread of COVID in our county is relatively low. And second, it's not because we're not doing a lot of testing, it's because it shows we're testing enough of our population to make informed decisions about reopening. But despite that, we still have only tested 4.9% of the county's entire population. And hopefully we can get that up because the state's average is 6.3%. So with a little bit more testing, we'll do even better. To round out our Harford County numbers, of the 11 largest Maryland jurisdictions that have at least 900 COVID cases, Harford continues to have the lowest number of COVID cases per capita. So we're at 386 COVID cases per 100,000 people. And that's compared with a state average of 981 cases per 100,000. And we also have the lowest number of COVID deaths per capita. We're at 21 COVID deaths per 100,000 people. And that's compared with a state average of 45 deaths per 100,000 people. So as long as these numbers stay good like this, we're hopeful that the reopening plans will continue on. So now that many states are reopening and they're each doing it at a different pace with different rules, navigating the rules for everyday life is becoming more complicated. So reopening is much more complicated than a blanket stay-at-home shutdown. And as you all know, there's no playbook, there's no template for this. Plus, the COVID-19 virus is a new virus, so scientists are learning new things every week and giving out new recommendations, and sometimes a little bit confusing or conflicting recommendations over a short period of time. So for example, early on, face masks were not recommended, but today they are. Early on, gatherings of more than 250 people were prohibited. Then it was gatherings of 50 prohibited. Now it's gatherings of 10 prohibited. And then early on, it was thought that only symptomatic people could transmit the virus. Then there was evidence that asymptomatic people, those who didn't have any symptoms, could transmit the virus. And then as recently as yesterday, the World Health Organization stated that asymptomatic spread was rare. And then as recently as this afternoon, the World Health Organization reversed what they said yesterday and said that it was too soon to say. So obviously this is very confusing around the world and the country and in our state. So we here in Harford County, we're trying to first keep up with all of the executive orders, which are enforceable by law, but changing rapidly. And secondly, to keep up with the science, which is also constantly shifting. Here would be my recommendation. People need to make common sense choices based on what the science is telling us at this time and based on our own risk tolerance. So I would focus on the 3 C's: contacts, confined spaces, and crowds. And what the science is basically telling us at this time is, as things gradually reopen, we should be following those 3 precautions. First, avoid contact with lots of people, because every new person that comes within 6 feet of you for more than 15 minutes increases the probability that you'll catch the virus or that you could give the virus to someone else. Second is avoid confined, enclosed spaces, because the virus can be transmitted through droplets and aerosols and can linger in an enclosed room for many minutes. And third, avoid crowds, because even if you try to stay 6 feet away from others, the larger the crowd, the likelier it is that you will run into someone and break that 6-foot rule. Let me just touch on those 3 points again. The first one was avoid contact. You need to continue social distancing, including wearing masks, washing hands, and keeping a distance of at least 6 feet from others. Try to make sure that public spaces you go to are maintaining social distancing measures. Any 15-minute face-to-face conversation between people who are within 6 feet of each other constitutes a close contact. There was a recent June the 1st Lancet article that reviewed a meta-analysis of the world literature that included a review of 172 observational studies across 16 countries and 6 continents, as well as 44 comparative studies involving over 25,000 patients with COVID-19. And it fairly definitively found that 3 interventions help reduce the spread. The first one is physical distancing of 6 feet. The second one is face masks. And the third one is eye protection. They all greatly reduce the risk of viral transmission. So people have been talking about that for a while. No one was sure if the science really backed it up, but now we have science that backs that up. There was another study published in May of this year showing that surgical face masks can effectively reduce coronavirus spread in both respiratory droplets and aerosols. And as we mentioned last week, it's this aerosol spread of the COVID-19 virus that allows it to stay in the air for up to 14 minutes. So that might be the reason the virus is so contagious. So whereas there may be some debate earlier this year, today there seems to be a consensus in the scientific community. You really should stay 6 feet away from others, wear face masks in public if you want to help stop the spread of COVID in your community. Second one is avoid confined spaces. So indoor spaces, indoor activities in confined and closed spaces, even large ones, are less safe than events held outside. So many infections have been traced to public transportation vehicles such as buses and vans. You need to be careful about the safety of enclosed spaces such as office buildings and indoor business workplaces. You should try to have a flow of fresh air in your building because that helps dilute the virus. It was a recent May 27th Lancet article that wanted to see how long small aerosol droplets from a cough will float through the air. They did their experiment in 3 types of rooms with different levels of ventilation. The 3 rooms were a room with no ventilation. The second one was a room with mechanical ventilation, that's a fan. And then the third one was a room with a fan supported by opening a window or door. In the poorly ventilated room, the number of droplets halved in about 5 minutes. So it took 5 minutes to get rid of half the droplets in a poorly ventilated room. Whereas in the room where you had a fan and an open window or door, it took 30 seconds. So those findings confirm that improving ventilation of public spaces will dilute and clear out potentially infectious aerosols. On May 27th, the same day as that publication, the CDC stated in its building guidance to employers, and it's a quote, "Increase circulation of outdoor air as much as possible by opening windows and doors, using fans and other methods." And then the third point is avoid crowds. Large groups are risky no matter where they are gathered. Even outdoor crowds means more people, more contacts, and more potential sources of infection. So you can create a scenario where everyone is six feet apart, but if that scenario involves 500 people, that's inherently riskier than if there were only 10 or 20 people. There's more potential for one of those 500 to have a COVID-19 virus and be spreading it. So as we said last week, COVID-19 is known to be transmitted through super spreader events. One person with a certain type of metabolism, a certain type of immune system can easily infect 100 people at a single event. So the thing you really want to avoid is being involved with that kind of a massive outbreak, because that can result in a lot of hospitalizations and possibly deaths. So every time someone asks me, can we have this event, there'll only be 20 people there or 40 people there or 200 or 500 people, I think, although there's a legal number that you really shouldn't have more than 10 people, no one can really give you a science-based number and give you a guarantee that there won't be an outbreak. All we can ask you to do is use your common sense and understand the more people there are, the riskier it will be. And then finally, the choices. So every individual ultimately has to make their own personal decision about the level of risk he or she is comfortable with, weighing their own age and health status, life circumstances, and general level of risk aversion or tolerance. People at high risk for developing severe disease will want to take the greatest precautions. But even young, healthy adults and children should also consider the protection of people around them, including family members, colleagues, or friends who are vulnerable because of chronic diseases or other life circumstances. So I know this is a difficult, challenging time. People are asking lots and lots of questions. And again, we're trying to act within the law, but then we're also trying to base our decisions on science. And sometimes with things changing so quickly, it's challenging. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Moy. I think sometimes challenging is an understatement. Council, your time for questions. Dr. Moy, with the continued declining numbers, COVID numbers, what are your thoughts on sizes of gatherings, seeing that change, decline? And are you aware of any news conference that the governor has scheduled as of yet this week?
No, we actually hear about those press conferences the same time you do. So I don't have any inside information on that. I suspect there'll be a change sometime in the next few weeks, but really can't say. But I agree, the numbers are looking better in the state, and they're definitely looking pretty good in Harford County.
Thank you, sir. Again, anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Moy.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item number 5, approval of minutes. Board of Health update, June 2nd, 2020. Auditor update, June 2nd, 2020. Public hearing, June 2nd, 2020. Legislative day 20-19, June 2nd, 2020. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved. Agenda item number 6, introduction and consideration of resolutions. Mr. Woods, please read resolution 017-20 into the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 017-20, Performance and Operational Audits, FY 2021, introduced by Council President Vincenti. A resolution authorizing the county auditor to conduct operational and performance auditing procedures included in the fiscal year 2021 annual audit plan. A public hearing is required for this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Ms. Brooks, would you like to speak to the plan?
I don't think I have any comments other than what I provided during the auditor update.
All right, thank you very much. Council, any questions of Ms. Brooks? All right, Ms. Brooks, seeing none, we will want to thank you again for your earlier presentation, and we'll consider this resolution at the next meeting.
Great.
Agenda item number 7, introduction and consideration of amendments. Amendments 1 through 5 to Bill 20-012, and amendments 1 through 20 to Bill 20-014. Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment number 1 through 5 to Bill 20-012, FY21 CPI bonds, introduced by Council President Vincini at the request of the County Executive. Amendment number 1. In each of the following places, strike $55,580,000 and substitute $55,700,000. 1. In the title page, third and fourth lines. 2. On page 4, line 2 and 3, and lines 23 and 24. 3. On page 6, lines 3 and 4. 4. On page 13, line 1 and line 13. 5. On page 16, line 24. 6. On page 44, line 10 and 11. 7. On page 45, line 24, and continuing on page 46, line 1. Amendment number 2. On page 6, in the chart appearing before line 1, below Stafford Road Bridge number 24, in the project column, and 600,000 in the amount to be borrowed column, add a new line with Chestnut Hill Bridge number 40 in the project column, and 120,000 in the amount to be borrowed column. Amendment number 3. On page 6, in the chart appearing before line 1, strike $55,580,000 from the amount to be borrowed column and substitute $55,700,000. Amendment number 4. On page 13 in line 7 through 10, strike $2,775,000 in each of the years 2021 through 2039, inclusive, and $2,855,000 in 2040, and substitute $2,785,000 in each of the years 2021 through 2040. Amendment number 5. In the following places, strike $55,800,000 and substitute $55,580,000. $55,580,000. Thank you. And substitute $55,700,000. 1. On page 22, line 13 and line 23. 2. On page 25, line 13. 3. On page 29, line 35. 4. On page 30, line 44. 5. On page 31, line 49. 6. On page 33, line 35. 7. On page 46, line 4. Amendment 1-20, Amendments 1 through 20 to Bills 20-014, revised prior bond bills, introduced by Council President Vincini at the request of the County Executive. Amendment number 1. On the title page, in the fourth line, strike Section 3 and substitute in lieu thereof Sections 1, 2, and 3. And in the sixth line, after 2, insert 5. Amendment number 2. On page 3, in line 13, strike $446,000 and substitute in lieu thereof $371,906. Amendment number 3. On page 3, in line 15, strike $1,219,000 and substitute in lieu thereof $1,099,278. Amendment number 4. On page 3, after line 20, insert the following. looks like 20 to me. On page 3, after line 26, insert the following. Major HVAC, 119,722. Athletic and recreation repairs and improvements, 74,094. Amendment number 5. On page 4, after line 3, insert the following. Section 3, and be it further enacted that a portion of Section 1 of Bill number 18-009 be, and it is hereby repealed and reenacted with amendments as follows. Project, amount to be borrowed. Agricultural Research and Exploration Center, 100, what is it? Okay, thank you. Agricultural Research and Exposition, yes, sir. Thank you. I don't know why I can't say that. Center, 150,000. Metro Area Network, HMAN, 2 million. County-owned watershed restoration improvements, 1,400,000. Joppatown Area Watershed Restoration, 700,000. Plumtree Run Watershed Restoration, 850,000. Riverside Area Watershed Restoration, 120,000. Sam's Branch Watershed Restoration, 120,000. Sunnyview Stream Restoration, 400,000. So, Watershed Restoration Assessment, 1,250,000. Watershed Restoration Improvements, 300,000. Watershed Restoration Maintenance, 60,000. Wheel Creek Watershed Restoration, 600,000. HCC Nursing and Allied Health Building, 435,000. Center for Educational Opportunity, HVAC to, yeah, but it's put together here. 2,200,000. Churchville Elementary School roof replacement, 283,994. It's combined with another one, so I'm trying to separate, sorry. North Harford MS Domestic Water System Improvements, in brackets, 500,000, 288,599. Prospect Mill Elementary School, HVAC, 2,294,000. Youth Benefit Elementary School Replacement, 13,141,000. Abington Road Bridge, number 169 over CSX, 100,000. Carsmill Road Bridge, number 216, 100,000. Glenville Road Bridge, number 30, 50,000. Jericho Road Bridge, 30,000. New Park Road Bridge, number 125, 25,000. Phillips Mill Road Bridge, number 70, 50,000. Lauderdale Road Bridge, number 63, 150,000. Fire Alarm Emergency Communications, 46,006. HCPS Facilities Repair, 90,624. Major HVAC, 120,777. Total, 27,355,000. Section 4, and be it further enacted that a portion of Section 2 of Bill number 18-009 be, and it is hereby repealed and reenacted with amendments as follows. Project, amount to be borrowed. Citizens Care Center, 1,500,000. Humane Society, 325,000. Susquehanna Center Addition Renovations, Harford Community College, 5,160,000. Water and wastewater, Harford Community College, 750,000. Deerfield Elementary School replacement, 0. Edgewood High School replacement, 100,000. Red Pump Road Elementary School, 6,074,261. Large gymnasiums and joint facilities, 600,000. Shucks Road Recreational Complex, 500,000. Shucks Road Regional Complex, 500,000. North Avenue Henderson Road Bridge number 215, 2,100,000. McPhail Road, Tollgate Road Roundabout, 455,000. Red Pump Road Roundabout, 400,000. Robin Hood Road, US 40 Titan Terrace, 1,750,000. Trimble Road, Fort Hoyle Road Roundabout, 410,000. Wheeler Road, Laurel Bush to Fairway, 2,462,689. Jarrettsville Elementary School HVAC, 580,532. HVAC major repairs in brackets, 3,383,911. 3,176,458. William Paca Elementary School air conditioning, 3,580,057. Youth Benefit Elementary School air conditioning, 2,488,734. Youth Benefit Elementary School replacement, 2,311,266. Technology, 2,340,682. Forest Mill Road, 222,311. Swimming pool renovations, 5,557. Major HVAC, 207,453. General county total, 37,500,000. Amendment number 6. On page 4, in line 4, strike section 3 and substitute in lieu thereof section 5. Amendment number 7. On page 5, in line 7, strike 92,242 and substitute in lieu thereof 68,047. Amendment number 8. On page 5, after line 7, insert the following: Life, Health, Safety, and Compliance Project, 24,195. Amendment number 9. On page 5, in line 11, strike section 4 and substitute in lieu thereof section 6. Amendment number 10. On page 6, in line 26, correction 28, strike section 5 and substitute in lieu thereof section 7. Amendment number 11. On page 8, after line 11, insert the following: Section 8. And be it further enacted that this portion of section 5 of bill number 19-014 be, and it is hereby repealed and reenacted with amendments as follows. Project. Amount to be borrowed. County-owned watershed restoration improvements, 2,150,000. Joppatown area watershed restoration, 250,000. Did I look this up, that last number? 2 million, okay. Plum Tree Road watershed restoration, 600,000. Riverside area watershed restoration, 400,000. Sam's Branch watershed restoration, 50,000. Septic system disconnection, 0. Sunnyview stream restoration, 300,000. Watershed restoration assessment, 1,200,000. Watershed restoration improvements, 450,000. Watershed restoration maintenance, 100,000. Wheel Creek watershed restoration, 400,000. Darlington Elementary School comp HVAC systemic project, in brackets, $398,000. 292,188. Riverside Elementary HVAC systemic renovation, in brackets, 4,097,607. 4,052,876. Roof replacement, Joppatown High School, $889,207. William Paca Old Post Elementary, William Paca Old Post ES, open space enclosure, $1,261,000. William S. James ES, open space enclosure project, $691,000. Youth benefit elementary school replacement, $2,419,000. Abington Road Bridge number 169 over CSX, $100,000. Chestnut Hill Bridge number 40, $80,000. Glenville Road Bridge number 30, $20,000. Green Road Bridges numbers 119 and number 122, $360,000. Johnson Mill Road Bridge number 44, $140,000. Johnson Mill Road Bridge number 45, $140,000. New Park Road Bridge number 125, $400,000. Phillips Mill Road Bridge number 70, $50,000. Stafford Road Bridge number 24, $40,000. Wars Mill Road, $1,675,000. Tollgate Road, West Ring Factory Road to Plumtree Road, $2,330,000. Replacement buses, in brackets, $127,649. $111,490. HVAC major repairs, in brackets, $716,537. $489,227. Athletic and recreation replacement and improvements. Yeah, wait a minute. Where's the athletic and recreation repairs and improvements? $138,205. Fleet replacement, $16,159. Major HVAC, $239,648. Total, $21,695,000. Amendment number 12. On page 8 in line 12, strike section 6 and substitute in lieu thereof section 9. Amendment number 13. On page 8 in line 25, strike $495,000 and substitute in lieu thereof $444,342. Amendment number 14. On page 9, after line 19, insert the following. Major HVAC, $50,658. Amendment number 15. On page 9, in line 23, strike section 7 and substitute in lieu thereof section 10. Amendment number 16. On page 10, in line 9, strike $500,000 and substitute in lieu thereof $190,624. Amendment number 17. On page 10, in line 23, strike $586,732 and substitute in lieu thereof 0. Amendment number 18. On page 10, in line 25, strike $300,000 and substitute in lieu thereof $282,332. Amendment number 19. On page 11, after line 2, insert the following. Major HVAC, $586,732. HCP facilities repair, $327,044. Amendment number 20. On page 11, in line 7, strike section 8 and substitute in lieu thereof section 7, section 11.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Sure. Mr. Boniface, I know you spoke earlier to these amendments, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, Mr. Samlis?
Now, again, yeah, these were all just changes to the reappropriated bond bills, as well as the one change for Chestnut Hill Bridge for the new bond bill. And just because I understand it was a little bit probably confusing for people, the only things that were really being changed though on the amendments on the prior bond bills were the school projects that the Board of Ed asked to kind of close out and then transfer to those new categories. Unfortunately, there's lots of other bonded projects, most of which are already done and completed, that are part of the legislation because they were part of the original legislation. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. The only things changed in the amendments were what the council approved when they approved the budget, and that was Chestnut Hill for the new bond bill, and all of the Board of Education move transfers for the prior bond bill.
Thank you, Mr. Samus. These amendments will then be considered at the next legislative session.
Thank you, sir.
Agenda item number 8, call for reading of bills. A, final reading of bills. A, Bill 20-010, Pay Plan and Classification Plan. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Woods.
move to approve Bill 20-010.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. It's moved and seconded to approve Bill 20-010. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Giordano,
Aye.
Mr. Schroeds,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Beulah.
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, Bill 20-010 is hereby approved. Bill 20-011, Zoning and Parking. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Woods.
I move to approve Bill 20-011 zoning and parking.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeds. Move a second to approve Bill 20-011. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Giordano,
Aye.
Mr. Schroeds,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Beulah.
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, Bill 20-011 is hereby approved. Agenda item number 9, enrollment of bills. The enrolled copy of Bill 20-010, Pay Plan and Classification Plan, and Bill 20-011, Zoning and Parking, is hereby certified as the text finally passed. Agenda item number 10, new business. Fiscal year 21 council contract renewal. Council, before you this evening, you have a copy of the fiscal year 21 contracts for Mr. Cahoe, our zoning hearing examiner, Mr. Young, our people's counsel, and Mr. Chebalowski, our alternate zoning examiner. The Personnel Committee recommends the approval of these contracts. So I would ask for general consent to approve the fiscal year 21 contracts. Thank you. With no objections, the contracts are hereby approved by general consent. The reconsideration of vetoed Bill 20-005 claim settlements. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Woods.
I move to reconsider the veto bill 20-005.
May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Moved and seconded to approve Bill 20-005. Is there any discussion? I'm sorry, yes, and it's override the veto message from the county executive. Is there any discussion?
I thought your question was to just open the reconsider, but that's okay. I'll amend my amendment to.
Mr. Wagner. You need to unmute your mic, sir.
That always helps. Everyone is aware of the message that the county executive sent back over to our side, representing their dissatisfaction, I suppose, with bill number 20-005 claim settlements. And I would certainly appreciate the fellow council members supporting the override of this veto so we can move ahead and implement a little bit more council authority in terms of checks and balances and put more eyes on issues as they come up for settlements. And I would certainly appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any other council members? Seeing none, Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano,
Aye.
Mr. Schroeds,
No.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. Viola.
Aye.
There being 6 votes in the affirmative, 1 vote in the negative, Bill 20-005 is hereby approved. Agenda item number 11, business from the president, but council, if I may, I would like to change things this evening and have the council members go first. So with that, Mr. Johnson.
Council President. First, I would like to thank Councilman Woods and Councilman Beulah for supporting the peaceful protest earlier this past week. I also want to circle back to last week. My dear friend, Councilman Wagner, I would have to disagree with him on one thing that he said in reference to the Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. From my understanding of the movement, Black Lives Matter has never said anything in reference to only Black lives mattering. It has always been, to my knowledge, that all lives matter. It's just that that the movement wants the world to focus on the fact that Black men and women are getting killed at a disproportionate rate. Black people accounted for 24% of the killings, but we're only 13% of the population. So that's a large disparity there. So I would just disagree with my dear friend on that matter. As far as the protest is concerned, the protests have been completely peaceful. This country has been founded on protests. The Boston Tea Party was a protest. The Bush Doctrine, or I'm sorry, the Bush Declaration, with 34 duly elected members of that lived here in Harford County, had a declaration made up against King George. That's part of our history. On the Great Seal of Harford County, it says, at the risk of our lives and fortune. So that was nothing but a protest. So I would ask that that we continue, or that we support these protests that are happening. I just want to give you, I gave you all some information last week about my father, and about how as a soldier, how he was considered less than a man once he came back from the war. The Confederacy, it's, I've been doing some research on it, and in March of 1861, the vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander H. Stephens, wrote, and these are his words, and this is what the Confederacy thought back then: upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, and that slavery and subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. And so Black folks have been marginalized in this country since we've gotten here, and we as a country have to recognize that we have to come to grips with that. And I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week, that is our original sin, and we're bearing the fruit now of our original sin. Harford County isn't immune, like I said last week, to racial problems. Just take, for instance, a couple years ago, the students at a certain school wrote the N-word on their T-shirts. You have the black lawyer that was accosted and asked for his identification, his bar card, along with calling his job to ensure that he was an attorney after he proved that he was who he said he was, but they still went through those steps. My dear friend, Councilman Woods, is a Native American. But Councilman Woods, no one can tell that he's Native American, but me as a black man, I can't wipe off my skin color. So the fact that I'm a black man, and I've been or we have been marginalized still to this day, just because the color of our skin, needs to stop. My question is to all of us is, when is the Spartacus moment going to happen for us? Because neither party has a lock or control for who's been good at racial or who hasn't been good at racial inequality or racial justice. So both parties have some soul searching to do, but I want to know, when are we going to have, as a country, when are we going to have our Spartacus moment? Because this is the thing, is that it's gone from a racial aspect, and it also affects not only the black community, but it's also affecting the white community now too, because this is now becoming also a social and economic issue. Case in point, my district hasn't received anything, and it's now that people are not just coming out; they're coming out for this racial inequality and justice, but they're also coming out because they have other agendas, whether where the money's going and the resources and things like that. So we really have to take a look at things. And finally, I'll close by saying that, what side are we going to be on in history? Because I'm telling you, gentlemen, that change is coming, and we're gonna have to look ourselves in the mirror and say that we've been on the right side of history. So with that being said, I implore you all as leaders in this county to join along with these protesters, join along with us in saying that racial and justice and inequality will not happen in this county. And I thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mr. Johnson stated, of course, a few of us attended some of the protests, Council President as well, for the Bel Air ones. It's interesting for me because people keep calling it a protest. I wish there was a better word for what that actually was, because especially in Bel Air, one quick observation, besides the messaging and how well everything was presented and the speaker spoke, one thing that really caught my attention was throughout that event, there was people walking around, of course, handing out water and all that, but just as important as that, people were picking up every bit of trash as well and policing themselves. And when one or two people started to I don't want to say get rowdy, but worked up, the organizers of the group brought it right back in and kept it on message. So really great job for that. And the message I felt was laid out very well. You know, I was proud to be up there and a part of it. I was planning on attending a couple others, but Friday night throughout the weekend, I was up in the northern end on swiftwater rescues. I spent the whole weekend around from Friday night all the way to Sunday, basically out doing searches. And luckily, I don't believe there's anybody missing. So there was a long search for that, but I'd rather have long searches for nobody missing than the alternative. With everything going on, I thought it was interesting to bring up that on May 31st, the last recipient of a Civil War pension passed away at 90 years old. I mean, think about that. The last person receiving a Civil War pension just passed away, and see what's going on in the United States today. Her name is Eileen Triplett. Her father was actually start off as a Confederate soldier, but defected in 1863 and joined the Union to fight along with the Union forces. So she at her passing, she was making $73.13 a month from a Civil War pension. It's not too long ago. The Folsom Volunteer Fire Ambulance Company this Thursday night will be starting up the food truck events again. Social distancing issue will be taken care of, cleaning all the safety stuff, but we're having our events at the firehouse and trying to resume some bit of normalcy. So looking forward to anyone stopping by Thursday night and enjoying that. It should be a great time. And finally, want to congratulate not just all the students of Harford County, but of course the District E students that graduated over the last couple of days, including Falston and Bel Air today. So congratulations and best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Giangiordano.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to also say congratulations to Bel Air High School graduated today and Patterson Mill High School. That's all I have this evening, Council President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Giangiordano. Mr. Schroeder.
Thank you, Council President. I also want to congratulate all the graduating seniors. I did have an opportunity to go recognize David Merrill for his significant contribution and hard work in the North Hartford FFA and Natural Resources and Agricultural Program. It was great. After his ceremony, surprised him out by the barn, and it was a lot of fun. I was glad that I could recognize him on behalf of the County Council. Just want everybody to continue to be safe. I realize that protests and those sorts of things are very important for government to push everything forward. So I just hope that everything stays the way it is now, and they've been very peaceful, well done, well organized protest to shed light on issues that are very important to us as Americans. With that, and I'm losing my voice, I guess that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schroeder. Mr. Beulah. I'm sorry.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You skip him.
I was just going to skip right over you.
Whatever you want, whatever you want. I want to thank all the council members for their support of Bill 20-005 and certainly for repealing the veto. It's funny because I was looking over 26 years ago, a very similar bill, and this one was drafted after that one, reflected our county executive being very enthusiastically involved in the passage of that did basically the same thing. And the message that was written by then County Executive Rearman that came over to the council was very much the same as the one we received the other evening or the other day, stating that the veto was in place for the very much the same reasons. So, you know, it's been 26 years out there, and that one wasn't challenged and wasn't deemed illegal, and I don't think there's any illegalities in this one as well. And I think it just helps us to do our job better over the next however long it stands. And probably never done before, but for my comments, I'm going to stand by what the prayer was that I delivered this evening, because I think it pretty much says everything I want to say. It reflects, you know, where we are as a county, as a nation, as a people, and I say that including all people. So I'm just gonna submit that as my comments for the evening, and say thank you very much and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Now, Mr. Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to thank all the graduates, especially those of Harford County and those in Havre Grace. I think we handled this well, as best as possible considering the pandemic and everything. But congratulations to all the graduates. But on a sad note, Jean and I would like to extend our most sincere, heartfelt condolences for Mr. John Hayward and his family in the loss of his wife, Marvis Hayward. This is just a real amazing family. I mean, I've known Mr. Hayward for over approximately 30 years or so. Good Christian man, raised his children right, you know, just humble, just a good all-around person. And, you know, we're going to miss Marvis. And it just saddens Jean and I would ask for those prayer warriors out there that you pray for comfort, for strength, for Mr. Hayward and his family in this very difficult time, because I know I remember when he married Marvis, and what a difference it made in his life. He was a happy man. He was a happy man. And with that, that's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller. If I may, I want to start with some business. So we have rescheduled the April Adequate Public Facilities meeting for Tuesday, July 14th at 6 p.m. We are working with the guidelines from the state of Maryland and county executive, obviously, to maintain our executive orders and social distancing. So we're not sure whether we'll be in person or virtual, but that will be taking place again on July 14th. And then council, next week, we will be bringing forth a resolution to establish a search committee for our new Harford County Health Officer due to Dr. Moy's retirement. He will be with us till September 1st, but in order for us to start that search, we need to have this resolution. Mr. Kearney has drafted it, sent it on to the state, and we are going to be putting it before us next week. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Woods, myself will be serving on the committee as representatives for the council. And then Mr. Boniface will be serving, representing the administration. And I believe Ms. Tiffany Stevens will be representing HR. And then we have other people that will be working with us. And we plan, or I plan on including all the council members throughout this process, and have each of you probably do different tasks. I too want to congratulate the class of 2020 for all of Harford County students. It was a special time for all of them. I had the unique opportunity to speak with the students as part of the commencement speech. I want to thank Superintendent Bolson. I want to thank President Jansen Robinson for the opportunity, and also County Executive Glassman, and Ms. Gaudier as well. It was a great experience, my first time in front of a teleprompter, but I also want to thank all of our parents, our teachers, and community members for all their efforts to across the county for helping the seniors celebrate this momentous occasion throughout this challenging and uncertain times. Mr. Wagner and I had the opportunity to work with Ms. Spells, Mr. Rucker, the City of Aberdeen, Mr. Robertson, Jack Graham from Ripken Stadium, and many others businesses to help support that program there. So it was just a outstanding time and appreciate the opportunity. I think it's evident by the comments here this evening by all of the council members that we all stand united to work with all of our citizens throughout Harford County to ensure all of the components that make up justice for all in Harford County. And we do respect all the peaceful and respectful protests that they had. It is absolutely their right. I did catch the tail end of the one at Havre de Grace. I was out of town. I was able to get out of the vehicle and speak to several people in Havre de Grace. And then also I was there in Bel Air for the full gathering, watched it build from just a few to the end, and very impressed with the demeanor of all of them. Yes, you have one or two that want to make a scene, but the message was not lost, did not land on deaf ears. And I believe that all of our partners here in the county, from the sheriff, the county executive, on through to all of us, will continue to be committed to make an effort and make change wherever needed. And with that, I'm going to close my comments. Agenda item number 13, comments and input from attending citizens. Ms. Dixon, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Mr. President, we have one, John Malamo.
Malamo.
Good evening, sir. It's Council President Vincenti. May you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Good evening to you and your colleagues. John P. Malamo, 2402 Eagle View Drive, Bel Air, Maryland. From zoning case 5814, we see that the hearing examiner has made limitations on as accessory uses as a prescribed by code section 267-88I, parens 2, parens F, a condition of the special exception, and quoting, the applicant has agreed to comply with these requirements and they shall be made a condition of this approval. Page 21, paragraph marked, parens F. It does not appear that any zoning certificates have issued. It would appear that the zoning code and the conditions of the special exception have not been applied. The authority of the Zoning Board of Appeals has been ignored and their decisions disregarded. Gentlemen, special exceptions are your responsibility. You enact the laws to establish them. As the Board of Appeals, you make the decision to grant them with any conditions. There's a penalty provided for failure to comply with conditions or requirements imposed. Reviewing the code and conditions of the special exception granted in zoning case 5814 in no particular order. Section 267-27, accessory uses and structures. A, generally accepted as otherwise restricted by this part 1, customary accessory structures and uses shall be permitted in any district in connection with the principal permitted use within such district. Dispensing and storing gasoline are restricted from the property by section 267-88J, parens 2, parens E, and section 267-60C, parens 2, parens E, because there are wells on adjacent properties. I do not believe that the special presentation on underground storage tanks was coincidental. The county may see a change to the code requirement in the near future, but has not yet. There is no materially similar use for skydiving and amusement, a business in the ag district. There is a materially similar use for the drone test facility, a business and industrial use, but only when it is used for agricultural purposes. Both uses are restricted by code section 267-88B, parens 8, parens B, and section 267-88I, parens 2, parens F. You believe that this will be upheld? Section 267-88I, parens 2, parens B. All commercial maintenance or servicing of aircraft will take place entirely within an enclosed structure. This is a condition of the special exception and a requirement of the code. Fueling aircraft is a commercial service. You believe that this will be upheld? I'll leave you with these thoughts. Reviewing national events, I would offer that when the governed people notice the government and governing bodies do not apply the law equally, those people affected by the situation become frustrated and noticeably angry. In all cases, it is a matter of degree, not of time. How do you expect to use your office for social change to seek respect for the people you serve if you have no respect for the laws you enact or the decisions you make that govern their lives? Gentlemen, you are measured by the actions you take, not the speeches you make. Good night.
Good night, sir. Anyone else, Ms. Dixon?
There is no one else signed up, Mr. President.
No one else signed up, then this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you.